Hey everybody, how's it going? Dan Shinder here live on Drum Talk TV. Thanks for joining me. I'm broadcasting from Drum Talk TV headquarters, and I'm out of breath already. And I forgot to shave, darn it. Broadcasting from Globe, Arizona, 100 miles east of Phoenix, up in the mountains. And our guest today is Dominic Fragman, coming to us from Washington, D.C. He's there working on his chops and trying to get Congress to do something. How are you, Dominic?
Doing well, man. How are you? See you.
Doing really well, and I'd like everyone watching to tell us where they're watching from, and I'll bring it all up on the monitor. We'll take questions. I'll peek at questions from time to time. If you're not familiar with Dominic, he did some work a couple of years ago called Solo Trio, and I'm going to show a video in just a moment. He's also the poster boy for the Wicked Chops practice pad, an amazing device. We'll talk about that. Most importantly, some current activity he's got going on after just having done a TED Talk. How many drummers do you know that have done a TED Talk? I think Mark Schulman is the only other one that I know besides Dominic, but we'll talk about his project with Paul F. Murphy. The F stands for effing. Paul F. Murphy and Dominic Fragman's Spirit of Jazz and Democracy. But first, let's take a quick peek at some Solo Trio. Here we go. Soak this up. Share this if you like it. Bring some people to the table. Here we go.
A modern day warrior, mean stride. Today's Tom Sawyer, mean pride. Tom Sawyer, he gets by on you. In the space he invades, he gets by on you.
I can actually hear Dominic cringing watching himself do that. That video got over 5 million views when it first came out. And I met Dominic because I saw a video of you doing, it was a live solo trio performance of you doing War Pigs by Black Sabbath. I think that's the first video I ever saw of you. That's how we met. And we've been connected for, I guess that was 3 years ago or so now. And now I work with Dominic and Paul Murphy and Donald Witter on a project that we all share, which is, and you're going to see the only gold one in existence, the Wicked Chops practice pad. We'll get to that in a moment. First, I want to talk about a really neat project that they have going on, Paul and Dominic, called The Spirit of Jazz and Democracy. Catch us up on all that. What's going on?
Oh man, so in January, the Spirit of Jazz and Democracy is a program of lectures, master classes, workshops, and concerts that emphasize the relationship and history of jazz to democracy, and what we can learn from jazz about inclusive democracy and the exploration and embracing of differences and the positive progress of society. So we've done that at several colleges around the country, and the music is fully improvised. So there's usually a lecture as part of the concert. There's a lecture about these ideas, and then there's a concert with Paul Murphy, Larry Willis on the piano, poet laureate Jerry Carroll, and myself. And the music is fully improvised, and it's been recognized as a new direction in jazz and art. So by Oxford, and that's pretty exciting. So
Yeah.
we did that at many colleges, or a couple colleges, and then I was invited to do a lecture at the Voice of America, and also to begin some programming at the Patuxent River Naval Air Base, which is in St. Mary's County in Maryland. It's one of the premier aviation technology development sites in, I guess, the world or the country. I'm not exactly sure, but I know it's a big deal. And we got to do a concert at the Naval Air Museum in January, and I put together a program called The Spirit of Innovation and Freedom, where we did the Spirit of Jazz and Democracy Ensemble performed. Prior to the performance, we did a panel where we did a discussion on the similarities in the mindset of innovation across disciplines and the role of improvisation in that process, and then again how those mindsets foster the exploration and embracing of different perspectives and ideas and the positive progress of across disciplines, thought, technology, for society as a whole. So we got to do that. I had the director of unmanned aircraft systems from University of Maryland on the panel. I had the co-conceptual designer of the F-16 and the A-10 on the panel. And then I had Paul Murphy, who represented those ideas for music. And people went nuts, man. They loved it. They loved the music. We made the front page of the paper. And things have been going really well. Right now we're going to organize to try to make a move to pitch that program to the DoD as a way. So the military has been for a while now promoting a culture of innovation in all branches and levels of the military. So I believe we can help with that mission, and at the same time do community outreach where we're teaching people about these ideas and trying to orient them towards, exploring differences with people, embracing differences with people, and moving thoughts and society forward progress. That's what we're all about in the music and in our lives.
It's neat to be using music as the conduit or the vehicle for that. And
Yeah.
I'm curious, something you and I have never talked about as much as we talk. I've never asked you this. At those events, the Spirit of Jazz and Democracy events, is there a median age that seems to be in attendance, and are most of the people who attend musicians? Do you know?
I would say that I feel like it's very exciting to tell you that the answer to all those questions would be actually no. No, they're not all musicians. No, there's no, well, I guess there is a median age, but it's not, it's varied because we've done programming for the college students and so there's a lot of that age group there, but at the Voice of America, it's different age groups. At the for the Naval Air Station stuff, that was upper ages. That was all ages really, but there wasn't a whole lot of young people at that one. It was mostly aircraft people and engineers that were interested in the ideas. I would say that Pierre Spray, as one of the conceptual designers of the F-16, and Matt Scassero, who's the drone guy from University of Maryland, he just had, and for the first time in human history, delivered they're delivering or human organs by drone. So when a human organ is outside of the body, it's dying. And if they have to transport one from, let's just say, Florida to Maryland, that time, if it's an hour, 2 hours, however fast or slow they get it there, it's deteriorating. So they're decreasing that time to minutes. And so
this is for transplants, right? For emergency
organ
transplants,
correct.
Yeah.
So people were interested in those guys as well. So we were drawing people from that arena and discipline who didn't know anything about the music, you know?
Yeah, that's interesting. Do you recall at any of the events, do you recall what some of the music questions were that were being asked that Paul answered that were being asked by pretty much non-musicians?
Sure. By non-musicians is interesting enough because we do master classes as well. Like we've done jazz master classes for the jazz program at Loyola University and St. Mary's College of Maryland. And but in the situations where we're doing more workshops that are not music oriented, there's always a music performance. But when the majority of the people are not in the room, their questions are very interesting. They're mostly about how one improvises, not necessarily so much geared towards music, because this we're trying to do too is illuminate what is the mindset of improvisation. And that can go across disciplines as well, because the mindset of innovation is one where you have to be open to different ideas. You have to be open interaction, mutual communication, which includes mutual listening, and so all these things are coming together, and people are asking questions about how that works. How can they be like that in what they do, or that sort of thing. So, but if there are music questions about what they're playing, it's so simple to address, because really all it is we don't talk about anything before we play. I can tell you there is a set list, and what the set lists look like are, you know, number 1 through 8 or something like that, and it just says Paul and Larry, Paul, Larry, Jerry, Dominic and Paul. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't say anything but just who's going to be on stage at that time and who's playing. We just go out and play, and I think people are intrigued by that. Like, you didn't talk about any of this? No, we don't. We're not, and we don't want to. We just want to feel, listen, and interact. And it's the highest level of playing that I've ever had the honor of being able to consistently do, or do at all.
That's neat. And do I remember correctly that I love the jazz CD that Larry and Paul did, and do I remember correctly that Larry was the original keyboard player for Blood, Sweat, and Tears?
I don't know that he was the original, but he was the keyboardist and arranger for 8 or 12 years or something like that at the height of their stuff. So I don't know that he was the original, but he certainly was in there while they were touring the world. You know? Yeah. He also did all the arranging for the original Blues Brothers music band. He'll tell me that, like, the time when they were in the studio for that stuff in the movies, he's like, man, one day Ray Charles is here and Aretha Franklin comes in, and the next day it's James Brown. You know what I mean? But that dude, Larry's played. I mean, he started in the '60s with Jackie McLean when he was 19, and he's played with everybody from Dizzy Gillespie, Lee Morgan, Wynton Dallas, on to, like you said, Blood, Sweat, and Tears, and Fort Apache, and Hugh Masekela, and he's he still tours the world. I think he's out in Italy right now.
Wow, I didn't know he was still touring. Good for him. That's awesome. When people attend the master classes that you and Paul put on, what are some of the biggest takeaways that people would expect?
So when we do that as well, what we're focusing on is, well, we usually do an overview of the history of jazz and the sort of role of improvisation throughout, which actually shifts, because very early on, especially in Dixieland, there was far more improvisation than there is, I'd say, in more, I don't want to say this is not definitive, but in later bebop stuff and once it went free, the stuff that didn't go free and stayed in bebop is far less improvisation than what's in the avant-garde. The avant-garde went to total improvisation. And Paul Murphy was one of the ones that had the first bands that was doing that. As far as documented by a major label, he was recorded for CBS and RCA and with his own group, leading as a drummer, which was kind of crazy because that wasn't really happening in a big way since probably the Swing Guys, right? Or Max Roach and Art Blake. But so and he was buddies with all those guys. He was the premier soloist at Louis Bellson's wedding. Louis Belson, that's pretty crazy.
It is.
25 other guys. And Louis says, "Come on, I want you to be the premier soloist at my wedding." Louis Bellson?
Yeah, that's crazy. What an honor.
Yeah, right.
Like, how good do you have to be for that guy to request you as a drummer, you know?
Right. So as far as the classes go, we kind of go over that history and show where the music went, not where the popularity went, not where the record companies went, but where the music went. When it went, you know, like when you hear about Coltrane, a lot of people will talk about everything prior to, like, Giant Steps and before. But what happened after Giant Steps, getting into Interstellar Space and Ascension, those records that were very groundbreaking records, sort of weren't on the commercial or popular radar. So they kind of get forgotten about. But so we talk about that stuff, and we say our goal is to get you to do full improvisation. So as much as we can, and it depends on the level of the musicians in the room, you know? Like, can you think in those terms without putting yourself, it's not about time. We're not keeping a specific time or a specific key. So you have to use the sounds and the way that time works in general. Time is a funny thing, right? It's fluid. It doesn't work click, 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 click. It goes all the way through on a spectrum. And just like when you think about people who talk about time, you say, man, that happened right on time. They don't mean that it happened on a downbeat or anything like that. They just mean it happened when it was good for it to happen.
Right,
and that's the way we kind of try to introduce people to these concepts and get them playing in that way so that they can be a little bit more loose. Some people hate it. Some people, they're so nervous, they're so scared because there's no, hey, I'm used to being able to pull this out and go in this direction. Or if you just keep this thing going, if you keep this groove set up, then we can kind of be extemporaneous on top of it. This is not like, this is interaction and sound flow, not stuck on a grid or in a key signature. So some people don't care for, they're afraid of it. They're not afraid of it in general, but for themselves. Think about that. I don't like doing stuff that I'm not good at in front of people, you know? I need some time to get together. So, and some people, man, they feel so liberated by it. They just, whether or not they're ever going to play like that again, they just, in the moment, it makes them feel really good, you know?
Yeah. You know, it's an interesting topic. I think a lot of musicians, and I think this only because this was me and other musicians I've spoken to over a lifetime of playing music, that musicians who are good at improvisation, I think, take for granted that it's not for everybody, and there's a lot of people who learned their instrument or instruments and learned music in such a structured manner that the thought of improvisation, like you said, it scares the bleep out of them. A quick story on that. I'm good friends with a young man who recently turned 18. He's a great guitar player, and we did a show this past weekend together. His dad on bass. We were the nucleus of the band, and then we had 4 separate singers, each do like a mini set within this 2-hour set. Last year, the same lineup did something on like 2 hours notice at this arts festival. Like, hey, do you guys want to get up and jam? We're like, yeah, okay, what do we do? What do we know? Compare notes. Okay, we got it. We played like the 4 songs we all sort of knew. I faked my way through 2 of them. And then I said, hey guys, let's just do a 12-bar blues improv or something. In my mind, that was the easiest thing we could possibly get away with, and there were no boundaries on how long it would be, right? So Stuart, at the time, Stuart, the guitar player, was like, all of a sudden, he's like as white as a ghost, improv, what? And he kind of like tried it and didn't feel good about it. So this year, when I wrote out, as the musical director, I wrote out the set for the last set, and then each singer kind of had their choice of songs, except for my wife. I picked most of the songs for her. She did the first set. But in our set, I wrote 12-bar blues thing. And I thought, I wonder if he's going to be keen on it or not. We only practiced that once for about 2 minutes the night before the show. And he was so good. And I said, dude, what happened? And basically what happened, that he had been stretching his wings musically for the past year in what he studied in music theory, and his knowledge of music theory now gave him so much more creativity and elasticity in his mind to be more creative. And when we did the show, it had to be, I think, like an 8-minute 12-bar blues thing that we, they just said, I said, make sure you tell Ruby what key it's in. She was the keyboard player who's 16. All great musicians. Another singer is 18. Azalea did an amazing job. And it was like Stuart had only ever improv. He did such a great job. So it truly is a mindset. And it's more of a mindset than it is a confidence. Because I know a lot of people who, they've been pro musicians for 30, 40 years and they still get stage fright. And that doesn't really, I think that is beyond a confidence thing. They're confident in their skin as a musician. They're confident with what they play. I won't call out any names, but some of these people play like 15, 20-minute epics that have been out for 30, 40, 50 freaking years, and they still get nervous before they go on stage. So I don't look at it so much as a confidence thing, as more of a lack of confidence because of the lack of knowledge, experience, and mindset in the improvisational creative space, if you will. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. I'm going to check before we switch to Wicked Chops. Where is it? The only gold one in existence. I have an announcement about this. It's solid gold, too. This thing weighs like 23 pounds. No, I'm kidding.
I got a red one now. I haven't broke it out.
Oh, yeah. The red ones are tuned to H major, whereas the others are a G flat suspended fourth.
We've got to expand the musical vocabulary here.
Yeah, I like this comment by Justin McKee. He says, improv is the best way of knowing your personal range and the range of your instrument. That's a very good point. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. We really appreciate it. We got Justin's watching from Billings, Montana. Ray Rob Schumacher, how are you? We've got, I think I see Austria. People were digging on your solo trio video, which is really cool. Awesome. Thanks, everyone, for joining us.
I like this.
Sorry.
Let's switch to the Wicked Chops practice pad. So folks, when you see them, hold on. I grab one out of a box. So if you happen to be at a store that carries them, this is how they're packaged. This is what they look like. Now, when we first started promoting this product and people started submitting videos playing on it, and Dominic was making videos, it got a lot of hate. And a lot of times people hate what they don't know about or what they're afraid of, or they think it's a gimmick or something. And frankly, we don't have time for gimmicks. This 1.5-inch practice pad playing surface is awesome. In fact, it's so awesome that it took me forever to be able to start playing on it. And what I mean is not to begin playing on it, but to be able to hit it consistently. And I don't want to scare anyone away from trying to use it. It's just that it's different from drawing a circle on your drum head, because when you miss, you absolutely miss. And I saw a comment on your live the other day. Dominic does live Wicked Chops demonstrations on the Drum Talk TV Facebook page. And one person wrote, even though it's in the description, wrote, how does this make you better musically? And what people need to understand, drummers especially, the focus, and Dominic's going to show you, don't worry, but the focus it takes to play on a surface like this. I know a lot of educators that say, yeah, just turn on the tube and just watch something and just keep working on your strokes. You can't do that with this. Because even looking at it, I still can't hit it 8 times in a row, traditional grip. I won't tell you where I hit myself by accident. But match grip, either German or French, which I'm used to playing, is still a challenge. Pepe Marola started playing it blindfolded, like the 3rd time he played it. I mean, it's just a natural. But Dom, tell a little bit more about how it's helped your playing over the years. You worked with this for 10 years before we met. And give us some examples. He's got one down below the camera. He's going to tilt that and show you some extraordinary sticking on this little thing. And I challenge everybody to please get it, not because we want to sell 1 million of them, which wouldn't be a bad thing, but so that it helps your playing. And Dominic's going to show you how. And this summer, we're going to have a competition. Someone's going to win this only gold one that we have. So, Dominic, take it away.
Wait, are we starting with the
Yeah, in fact, play it first and then talk about it, then play it again.
All right, let's see if we can get it here.
Look at that little thing. Oh, and look at the little practice pad, too. Just kidding.
I think I was about to do something pretty inappropriate. Anyway, so you can see here. Yeah.
And it mounts on a cymbal stand, by the way. It's an 8mm thread, so it mounts on most cymbal stands. And for you drumline, drum corps people out there, Dominic also does demonstrations with marching sticks, and another friend of mine, Andrew McGarry, as well. Oh, he's got them handy. Check this out. Big fat marching sticks on a 1.5-inch surface. Tell me that doesn't take focus. Check this out. I'll shut up so you can listen.
Hey.
Yeah, I think my favorite video that we've made of you demonstrating this, out of all, we have, I think, 18 or 20, not counting Dominic's lives, but we've produced about 20 videos. My favorite one is the high sticking, the high stroke. It's amazing. His stick is moving, his tip is moving 3 feet, and it's always coming down on this 1.5-inch surface. It's extraordinary. I love it. I need to work on it more. I need to get better. How has it helped your playing? How will it help other people's playing, whether they're in drum corps, do speed metal, do funk, groove playing, whatever it is they play? How will it help?
I feel like the pad helps tremendously in many ways. And it, to put it, the easiest way to explain it is that technique is supposed to facilitate your ability to play your ideas. And the pad will help you develop your technique so that you can get to a level where you can play your ideas no problem. So that is inclusive of the technical things that you think of. Speed, power, precision, dexterity, tone, equality of sound, stick heights, refined, getting some control together.
Your timing, because you have to have great timing to not hit your other stick or tip on this thing.
Right. So those things are all going to develop. And guess what? Because you have to pay attention. You have to focus on this little space. Your development is going to occur faster than it would if you were playing on a bigger surface that you didn't have to pay as much attention to and didn't have to be as aware of what you're doing. You're going to tune into your body. And that's good for a lot of reasons. And we can go into that as far as meditation and the connection of mind and body and depth perception, all those things. These things are all happening. But the easiest way to explain it for people is that it will help you develop your technique faster. It will help your playing develop faster. And it will also help you to focus and relax, which will lead to more fluid playing. That relaxation that you're going to get is going to help you to play whatever you want on the drum set. I don't care if it's crazy all around the place or if it's just right in the pocket. Your pocket is going to feel better because you're going to be more relaxed. The band's going to feel better because everything's going to feel more relaxed. That's how it will help your musicality as well.
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying in any situation it would
right.
do that.
And a lot of people, when they see this, they think the idea is so that you play the center of your drums on your drum kit, and that's not what it's for. If you know your instrument well as a drummer, you will know that there are all different spots on any given drum that give slightly different, sometimes dramatically different sounds, and the same with cymbals, from the rim to the crest to the shoulder to the bell to just under the bell. I don't mean under the bell. I mean just below the bell. There's so many different sounds that your instruments will get. So if you're able to hit this consistently, and if you know where the different sounds are on the different parts of your drum set, you'll be able to hit those targets without thinking about it. That's what this is, basically. It's target practice, and not necessarily for you to learn to hit the center of your drum over and over,
right,
which is the deadest part of your drum, by the way.
I would say that each drum has at least 4 discernible sounds on a snare or tom or whatever, without using a rim shot. You have
Right.
4 discernible different sounds. In your cymbals, I believe that you have at least 7 discernible sounds without adding in chokes and things like that. This is just using a regular technique to strike them, not a scrape or any of that.
Right.
That stuff's all cool too. I'm just saying, as far as a stroke is concerned,
And where you hit it.
you can get about 4 out of your drums and 7 out of your cymbals. Now, if you're not, like Dan said, we're not playing in that same spot, but if you can get that precision together, you can better access wherever those sounds are for you, however you want to use them, any of them. So, I tell you, I've played on this thing a lot, more than most people would probably want to, and that's okay. But because of that, I know this thing is super beneficial to whatever ability. I believe that eventually it will replace bigger pads.
Eventually, everyone will be playing these instead of taking vitamins.
You won't,
I'm just kidding.
You'll feel better, mind, body, and spirit.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you demonstrate again and show us a couple of your favorite things to work out on with it?
So I do these things called the Wicked Chops Tips of the Week too that have some of this stuff in it. But I like to start. I got a set of 6 of these set up in my room.
Like a drum kit, right?
Like, yeah, snare rack, floor, ride, crash, hi-hat.
Yeah.
And I just go around and I practice. The way that I even start to do that, and the way that I started to get oriented on this here, is I would start with the stick down and pick it up. Start down, pick it up. Down, up. So I'm not even making a sound. I'm just going and getting oriented towards doing that. And guess what? That's the kind of stroke where you're going to end up playing away from your surface, which is going to pull the sound. You're going to get better tone out of your drum from playing up and away, not down and pushing and crushing it. So I like to spend time doing that. I don't just sit down and start burning on the thing usually. I mean, I could, but I like to use it to refine the strokes. So I like to go do singles into doubles and paradiddles and try to make everything sound the same.
Does anyone have any questions? While Dominic's playing, I'll check there's a delay, so I'll check the comments in a moment, see if anyone has questions about this.
And also, one thing that I really love to play that I think is very helpful, I used to sit at Cecil Taylor's house every day for 10 hours or more, and he would talk and I would play on my leg or my shoe. And I got into this thing of doing these alternating flams.
Flams?
So, which is one of the things that people were saying, oh, you can't do flams on here. Well, here's alternating flams, slow. But really, I'm starting to get into doing them where I can move them all around the drums like this. Oh. That's like, that stuff there is like out of the Ted Reed book, you know, the syncopation exercises. Bop, boom, bop, boom, 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 back, boom, that doom, that doom, that doom, doom, doom. Then go, hey. That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
With alternating flams.
And people were also saying they were challenging the fact that, can you do buzz rolls or closed rolls or crush rolls? And you certainly can. It's all in the technique. It's all just zeroing in literally on that little surface. While you're playing, I'm going to look at comments.
I also like to do the inverted doubles as triplets.
So, there's a question from Ashish. Ashish, you took your profile picture away. What the heck, man? Ashish is in Nepal. Thanks for tuning in, Ashish. And he says, he's asking, how long does it take to get used to it? I'll answer part of that, and then you answer your version. First of all, you have to play it consistently to get used to it. That's been difficult for me to do, especially in the beginning. It was hard for me to make time and play it consistently. But once you start playing it consistently, for me, if I played it every other day, it took about 3 weeks before I felt like I wasn't clanking every third, fifth stroke or something on the side of it, or on my missing it and hitting myself or hitting the air or whatever. So the answer really depends on how consistently and for how long you start playing it, right, Dom?
Yeah, absolutely. And how willing you are to strip yourself down if you have to.
Yeah.
How willing I just was really willing to say, almost like, I can't play anything. So I'm going to go back and start, just like I said. I start with my stick down. Actually, I didn't start like this. I didn't learn this until much later. I wish I would have known this when I first started, because I think it would really help. Because when I got the pad, you got to remember, I'd never seen anybody play on it. I just had to believe that it was possible. Because Paul Murphy, who invented the pad, he has a shoulder injury where he can't do intense things like that. And if he were it's something where something's not connected to his bicep. So if he wasn't connected to his bicep, so if he misses, it drops down further. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So he doesn't want to mess with it. So by the time I met him, that he hadn't been using the thing for a long time, and he said, I used to be able to play everything I can play on there, and Paul Murphy can play a whole lot of stuff. And I was like, man, you can play everything you can play on there, and I just had to believe it, So I believed it, but what I did realize was I had to slow, so slow, slower than I had ever gone, and I just work on making that stroke. Is my stick going up and down? You'll find that you got play. You get your stick wiggles around, and you got to take time and say, you know what? It ain't supposed to wiggle, even though it can wiggle. So you got to fix all that stuff. So I think it depends on how consistent you are and how willing you are to go back to the basics and work on it.
Yeah, and I believe that any musicians that play any instrument, I think we take it for granted that we all start out that way, and then we get good at our instrument, and we kind of never revisit that starting block again. We're just off and running, get a little bit complacent, and many musicians tend to learn towards what's easy. This is why some people were making fun of this thing when it came out, because they, I think, weren't willing to be dedicated, to try something new, to, like you said, strip yourself down, afraid to make mistakes. You can't be afraid to make mistakes to make this work or make anything work in music.
Right. And people would say, like, I've been playing drums for 40 years and I've never needed that. Why do I need it now? And it's like, that's like saying...
it's like saying you'll never get better by doing any particular thing.
More like saying, hey, look, everybody, here's a light bulb. And somebody goes... We've never needed electricity before.
Right.
Why do we need it now? Well, it can help.
Exactly. And it's the dedication that's the X factor in this. Like with anything, and like I said, I think I think people prefer easy, and you have to ask yourself. You know, I teach social media marketing, as you know. You've benefited from that.
Yeah,
and a lot of people, the things that I teach and everything, people want to take shortcuts. And I say, well, do you want easy or do you want results? And that's what working with this pad does. You get better results as a drummer. You get better results with your technique, with your sticking, with your timing, with being able to relax more, like Dominic says, and on and on and on. The focus factor, getting the different sounds out of your instruments and knowing where to hit, being able to hit them. It's one thing to know where to hit them. It's another thing to always be able to hit them. And
Yeah,
if you're
right.
if you're consistently working on a surface that's 1.5 inches, you're only going to get better, you know?
I like that, Dan. I think we should make a video. You want you want results.
Yeah, exactly. It's a big factor that I think a lot of people are tied to in music, you know, and in business too. So screw easy. Easy's for babies. That's why babies are doing easy stuff. Results are for people who put in the time, the dedication, they spread their wings, they open their mind, they stretch. They're not afraid to fall on their face a few times, break their nose, get a black eye, chip a tooth, and you're going to do it, and it's all going to be better in the end. Look at me. You can tell by looking at me I've fallen on my face quite a few times. Cool. I forgot what I was going to say. Wow, that's only about the 23rd time I've had a senior moment on the show since I've been a senior. Let's see if Tammy Mitchell-Woods is watching. Let's see if anyone else has any other questions. Does anyone have any questions about anything having to do with anything regarding drumming and jazz and spirit of democracy? Tell us real quickly about your TED Talk.
Oh, the TED Talk. So the TED Talk was, I got invited to do a TED Talk about the spirit of jazz and democracy. And so...
By the way, I got to interject. Most people do not get invited to do a TED Talk. The way it usually works is hundreds of people submit to the, I forgot the position's name, but the organizer of a city's TED chapter, and then that person picks who's worthy based on videos they saw and what's submitted. To get asked to do a TED Talk is really great.
Well, right on. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's true.
So that's cool. So I was invited to do it for the spirit of jazz and democracy, and so I you know, for me, what's interesting is the spirit of jazz and democracy is really sort of like a familiar way or whatever of saying improvisation, innovation, and freedom. So I take those concepts and I talk about the history. When I say the history and the relationship between jazz and democracy, in 1956, well, let's back up even a little bit before that. Jazz, in its development as an art form and a music, had a very specific perception. There was two-sided. One was that it was the music of crazy hoodlums, which is obviously ridiculous, but that was part of the perception of it, that it was breaking away from so many things that people loved in what you have to remember was the Victorian era of those sorts of behaviors and mannerisms. So coming out of the place, too, where it was coming out of the community of poor communities and predominantly African-American communities and brothels and whorehouses, people were very opposed to this idea. But at the same time, the qualities of jazz, about how it was being made, where it was coming from, and how it broke away from the classical tradition of having a conductor who tells everybody what to play. And the vision is created by one or a few people. In this music, it was about the collective ideas and contributions of each of the members of the ensemble, which through individualism, liberty, egalitarianism, these types of ideas, jazz took on a persona and a perception that was very much related to democracy. And so in 1956, President Eisenhower and the U.S. State Department realized that this perception was there. They realized it was inherent in the music and improvisation and in innovation, which are two of the essential qualities of jazz. So they made what was called the Jazz Ambassadors Program, and they took jazz musicians like Duke Ellington, Louis Armstrong, Benny Goodman, Dave Brubeck, Dizzy Gillespie, these guys, and sent them out all around the world as goodwill ambassadors to promote American values, ideas of freedom and democracy. And it was very, very popular all around the world. And people saw that connection and realized that they perceived jazz as the music of freedom and of individualism, and as a universal language that had the power to bring down the walls of nationalism. So these were all things that I speak about in that terms, but then bringing it back to these ideas of improvisation and innovation, and how those things, like I said, which are the two essential qualities of jazz, how those things promote democracy and liberation and freedom and the connection of communities and people and ideas and the progress of ideas and thoughts, whether or not those ideas and thoughts have to do with art, whether or not they have to do with engineering, or whether or not they have to do with freedom for all and the positive progress of humanity. Those ideas are innovation. The idea that everyone is equal and freedom should be for all was an innovation, though we have not yet achieved that innovation. Therefore, innovation is still required. So those are the kind of things that we talked about, and then I took a drum solo.
Nice. Of course. And a lot of people don't know this, but even though jazz music, and particularly the drumming and the rhythms and whatnot, was influenced by African music and African rhythms and African drumming, jazz is recognized as America, as USA's only true art form that originated from America. We don't own any other art form that was born here, and I think that's really neat.
Was a big deal, especially during the Cold War.
Right.
Russia was able to say, hey, what do y'all got over there?
Right.
We got classical music, we got opera, we got ballet. Ballet is drum.
And they had borscht and goulash, all kinds of things, bread lines.
And they said, well, what does America have for culture? Nothing.
Right.
Consumerism. And they said, no,
Right.
we don't. We have jazz.
Yeah.
And that became official, and it was a big deal. So, yeah, man. I mean those things, and though while all this talk about jazz, I want to tell a quick story.
Okay.
So I can help me illustrate this point without seeming maybe weird about it. I met a lady.
Good luck with that.
Too late, huh? When I was living in Manhattan, I met a woman who had a record label, and she said to me, "I want to do a recording with you. I want to do." I can't remember what she said, but it was something to do with whatever, and I think we were going to do a solo drum set record. She wanted to do solo drum set, and I said, she kept talking to me, and we were at dinner, and she kept saying, jazz, 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 jazz musician, jazz musician. I said, wait a minute, I have to stop you. I said, I love jazz, and I study it. I said, but I have no interest in playing. I have no interest in being a jazz musician. I'm not a jazz musician. I can't be a jazz musician. I was born in a time where it ain't me. Do I love it? Yes. Do I get to play with people who are true master jazz musicians? Yes. But I'm not trying to be a jazz musician. I'm trying to move music forward. So that's where, I don't know. I just feel the need, all this jazz talk. I don't want to come off like I'm something that I'm not. I don't believe that I'm a jazz musician. I believe that I'm a musician. And I want to play as freely and as I can. I want to be able to utilize any part of the information of music that I can to put ideas together. So I think jazz has a supposed to be. And I don't like supposed to be's. I don't want to play what you think I'm supposed to play or what it's supposed to be. That's not my idea of making music or art. So
did she reach across and slap you?
Her jaw dropped, man. She was like, what do you mean? You don't want jazz? Well, needless to say, I didn't walk out of there with any recordings about to happen.
And now you're a great jazz player too.
Yeah, look at me go.
So you just never know. How long ago was that, Dominic?
That was, I don't know, let's call it 5 years ago.
Okay. Interesting what can change in 5 years. Hey, when is your next Wicked Chops live on Drum Talk TV? You would think I would know this off the top of my head, but I don't.
I think I'd know. Let's see. I believe it's on Sunday, but I could be wrong here.
For those of you watching live, we're going to tell you when he's going to be doing the next Wicked Chops live, which is great because he walks you through it. What's that?
Wicked Chops live, 5:30 Eastern on April 23rd. Tuesday.
Okay, cool. Write that down, folks. 5:30 Eastern U.S. time on Sunday, the 23rd. Check it out. Dominic usually spends anywhere from a half hour to an hour, not just demonstrating playing on the Wicked Chops pad, but also translating it to the drum set. And you'll see him do that. He'll walk you through how to get started on it. He'll show you some really cool chops, and again, how it translates to the kit if you're a kit player. And he also has a Wicked Chops tip of the week that we publish on the Drum Talk TV Facebook page every week. So watch for that. One quick glance at the comments. What's that?
I was going to say, if you do make it to the Wicked Chops live, please ask questions. Feel free. I want to do something that's helpful for people, and so I can assume. I don't want to assume that I know what everybody needs, because that's ridiculous. So if you come ask questions, and
it's interactive, and he'll serve your needs, which is great. And sorry, let me just see what is here. So there's a question I'm going to have you answer when we're done. If you could type in the comments, look through the comments when we're done. Okay. But I also want to tell people that you could type in, if you're watching this on the archive or if you've missed it Sunday or whenever, type into the Facebook search bar Dominic Wicked Chops, or type in Drum Talk TV Wicked Chops, and you'll see his episodes. They're a lot of fun. This is put out by Ahead. You can find, there it is, the logo. You can find out where a dealer is near you. Go to the Ahead site, type it in, and this is a great tool. And watch for a competition that we're going to have. It's an online competition where you'll submit videos. We're going to set up a judging panel. We're going to set up parameters, and one person will win the only golden Wicked Chops practice pad in existence. And we're going to do that during the summer. So get yours now. Start working with it. Get good at it. And watch for us starting to put information out about that towards the end of May. Dominic, thanks for taking so much time away from your Wicked Chops practice padding to join us here live. And thank you, everybody, for not only watching Dominic and myself live and on the archive, but by following what we do here on Drum Talk TV. I sincerely appreciate it. Dominic, hang on the line. And everybody else, thanks so much. Cruise through the Drum Talk TV videos album and have fun falling down that rabbit hole. Thanks, everybody. See